Hello and welcome to the Movie Moolah podcast. It is the podcast about money in the film industry, where we have serious people on to talk about serious topics in an often silly way. With me today is Josh Doke, who was a partner with me at Mutiny Pictures, and before that we worked together on his film called Goodland, which was his directorial debut. Josh, how are you? Good to have you here.
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Ben. I don't know about all this serious people talk here, but you're very kind of you to have me on anyway.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, I'm always here, so that's
False advertising right at the top
I
of the
know
show.
completely. It's just, yeah. But jokes aside, yeah, so you've worked for a while in distribution, since Mutiny, but I don't think that was ever your goal. Why don't you tell everybody listening or watching to just how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, so from a fairly young age, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I think I got my first DV mini DV camcorder when I was 14, and I started off by just doing some very rudimentary editing in Final Cut Pro. I was in a advanced art class, and I told my art teacher that I wanted to edit a football highlight video. And I mean, this is dating me a little bit, but at the time, he just threw the actual Final Cut Pro manual at me and said, "Learn." We had it, and this was, YouTube was just starting to show up, but it was primarily like funny cat videos and not, what they have now, where you can have a 12-year-old in Idaho teach you everything you need to know about any piece of software. So I just kind of like learned, this was old. Like I was converting VHS tapes to digital and editing on Final Cut Pro and putting it to some really terrible music. And
What music?
oh my God, I don't even know what was popular back in like 2006. Like, I don't know.
Oh,
And it was all just like bad rock music, like what they call dad rock now, probably.
that sounds about right. Yeah, I've got some of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Best leave those bands out of it, I suppose. Yeah, and then I mean, from there, I always had an interest in art. I was cartooning. I was drawing comic strips from an early age, and I knew I wanted to do something creative. It kind of grew into film. I told my parents I wanted to go to film school. They were very supportive, which is, probably not easy for a lot of parents to hear. Their kid wants to go to film school. Especially, I come from a very small town, so not a lot of
What's the name of that town
avenues.
again?
Oh, it's Goodland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna come
Yeah.
back to that,
We'll
but
circle back to that. Yeah.
yeah.
And the town of 4,000 in Western Kansas. So as you can imagine, not a lot of film careers there. So at the time, other people would always ask me, what are you going to do with that? When I told them I was going to film school. Anyway, flash forward, went to film school, graduated, met some really great people, and made a lot of short films, a lot of really bad short films, some okay short films getting better, and ended up forming a production company right out of college with two of my best friends from film school, called Rockhaven Films. And then from there, we did commercial, work. We were doing a lot of like promotional content for like companies, local companies. We worked for a teen travel organization called Rustic Pathways for about 7 years. So I traveled the world, camera in hand, filming, promotional content for them. And then finally in 2015, I wrote and directed my feature film Goodland, and that's where I met you. I've always wondered,
We
like,
didn't
never
we
really
didn't meet in
met.
15.
No, that's when I shot it. So it would have been
Okay.
like 2017, 2016 when we finally met.
That sounds more right. But yeah, we still haven't met in person, have we?
No, that's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Keep forgetting that. I think you're the only member of Mutiny that I didn't. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, wonders of
that's
a digital age for
I
sure.
know, yeah. Um, all right, so yeah, no, you contacted me about Goodland as a producer's rep,
I did.
after your festival run, if memory serves, which
Yeah.
is why we're looking at 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. It's probably right before AFM 2016, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I actually believe it was AFM 2017.
Could be that too, yeah.
I heard you interviewed on the Indie Film Hustle podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
then I bought your book and I read your book, and I reached out just cold on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is,
When I
just
actually paid attention to Twitter.
yeah.
Um,
Just some advice to some filmmakers out there: shoot your shot, just message people because they might get back to you. And then you got back to me, and then you ended up taking Goodland to
mhm.
AFM in 2017, and that's where we ultimately ended up getting our distribution deal.
That sounds right. And I think that was also the first time I met uh Michael Ingram at that point.
Yeah.
Was at that meeting that I ended up selling Goodland on, and a lot of what sold it was the trailer, which does inform later parts of the story.
Yeah.
Um, so what did you think of your first outing in distribution as a filmmaker?
Well, I mean, I think you know this because you were doing, you were a producer rep, you were repping a lot of other films, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Goodland didn't go seamlessly by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say like for I shot the film. I was happy with what it was, for that low of a budget that we made that film for,
Mm-hmm.
and how it ended up, coming out and looking. A lot of great people did a lot of great work on that film. I'm proud of it to this day. But I knew what I had on my hands, like I looked at it and I was like, okay, like this isn't going to like, take the world by storm, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's decent and there's an audience for it. And you helping me get distribution, and then that actually going on, and it's low, kind of lower end distribution for films like this, and you really
Mm-hmm.
need a team that cares about the film that's going out into the world, because
Mm-hmm.
things can get lost so easily. So at the
So,
time,
yeah,
uh,
just one point of clarification. I think what you mean is that it was films like this get a lower tier of distribution than a lot of filmmakers expect.
yes,
What ended up happening with Goodland was atypical and on the higher end in that,
yeah.
yeah. Um, how
And
many screens did it get overall? Were we told?
I think it was like 10 screens,
Mm-hmm.
10
That
10
sounds right.
screens across the US, 10 to 12, I believe, was something like that. And I mean, like, that's exactly what I meant, Ben, by
Mm-hmm.
like, I came in with my expectations fairly low. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you can attest to this, that like everything that happened with Goodland, I was just like happy because it
Mm-hmm.
was more than I expected. It's like we I retained the theatrical rights for in our distribution deal,
Mm-hmm.
initially, because I just wanted to show it in my hometown theater in Goodland. There's a built-in audience there, as one could imagine, and I just wanted to be able to do that. Well, come to find out, our distributor wanted to put it on 10 screens. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
didn't conflict with the screenings in Goodland, but like that's point one. I didn't think that this film was going to go to any screens, so I was already happy. And then that just kind of kept happening as things got,
Mm-hmm.
as I started finding out more and more about what was happening, all of the platforms that it was going to be on when it was released on TVOD.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually finding out about the SVOD deal, which it went to Showtime for 2 years. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, like I said, that was all just like cherry on top, because I really just wanted people to be able to see it. I wanted to be able to point to Amazon page and say, like, you can rent or buy it here. But
Mm-hmm.
then these things just kind of kept happening. And then, international sales were another thing. We got an airline deal. We got two airline deals.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, this little film that, I just wanted people to go to Amazon to watch was now on airlines, and people could watch it for free. There was a small theatrical in the United Arab Emirates. I remember getting photos of like the digital poster outside of a theater, and like, again, just couldn't be happier. No expectations going into this. So, since then, having worked on so many other films on the distribution side of things, I
Mhm.
understand how fortunate we were. It was a little bit of a different time then, even, let's see, that would have been 2018. So,
Mhm.
even 5 years ago, things, the landscape was just completely different.
Entirely.
Um,
It's different than it was even 2 years ago. I mean, that was in COVID, so it's not exactly a 1-to-1, but it's evolving rapidly.
yeah. Yeah. And so I was just, pretty pleased with my first outing in distribution. And then, I'm sure you'll kind of get to this, but like when we formed Mutiny, um, I was brought in to kind of just do what I had done, I would say well on Goodland. I was
Yeah.
trying to do the promotional content. I was doing trailers, and I will say, like, the trailer for Goodland was cut by my team.
Hmm.
That wasn't just me. I have a great editor and business partner at Rockhaven Films, Edward Schroer, and he cut that trailer, and we had input from other filmmakers, Ben Burghart, who I've worked with for over a decade. And so, like,
Hmm.
we really have, like, I have a group of filmmakers that I trust, and we can workshop trailers and show things to and get ideas from. And so, like, with that and the marketing materials as well, the posters and
Hmm.
all of that, I kind of came up with a bunch of filmmakers that were willing to share their ideas and their critiques and their skill sets to help do that. So that's really how I cut my teeth doing that. So when we got to Mutiny, I was ready to be cutting trailers and helping with the direction of the art and the marketing aspects of the distribution.
Yeah. I mean, there are still, I still send you my trailer work when I have it. I was trying to figure out how to phrase it, but I think that's enough of an endorsement.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you want to see some of Josh's work, the YouTube for Mutiny is still live, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And at least the vast majority of those trailers are his.
Yeah.
Um, I know you didn't get into uh filmmaking to be a distributor. I didn't exactly either, but I accepted that fate long ago. At least on the distribution end. Um, but given that you worked there for a couple years, um, what would you do differently in making your next film?
Oh, wow. Yes. So I should say that I'm not out of the filmmaking game. I'm still currently writing and hoping to and producing and hoping to direct again,
Hmm.
sometime in the near future. So it's not, this is something that, like, I've been telling people that working in distribution for the amount of time that I did was almost like going to grad school, because it, like, opens up a whole different side of the industry that so many filmmakers only get to glimpse. They just
Hmm.
get to look, like, peer into, because they're only making a project every, I mean, at the most one a year,
Hmm.
and it's like probably not that for most people, especially on the independent end of things, where it takes a lot of time and money, and the casting is a huge issue. So, like, learning that side of things is a lot harder, because you make a film and then you learn how to distribute it, and then it could be a year or 2 years before you get to, like, take another crack at it.
Hmm.
But here we were working at a distribution company, and we're doing it constantly. It's like what we do. And so you can start to feel like what works and what doesn't. But it changed how I look at film, even going clear back to the script stage.
Hmm.
As I'm writing a script now, and I know, like, there are people who say, like, don't do this, but it's like I'm not necessarily writing for what's popular, but
Hmm.
I'm writing in mind of, like, okay, what is going to help get this film made and what is going to help get this film distributed, because at the end of the day, this is a business.
Hmm.
They call it show business for a reason. It's not, if you just want to make an artistic film for yourself and you can do it for cheap, that's fine. I mean, it's probably you have to take into consideration what distributors and what audiences actually want to see if you want to make this a career, because you have to have a chance to make another one.
Hmm. You're
And
totally
so, Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Could not agree more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that, so I now think about those things in a way, and I think about the marketing materials early, when you're writing a script, I'm thinking about, okay, what genre is this? Like, is this going to attract actors, or could it potentially attract name actors? Are there roles in this for people who will bring in the money to help get this made? And then not only get it made, but get it distributed, because that makes a difference. And we saw that time and time again at Mutiny,
Yeah.
where we would have great films, and I don't want to drag any genres down, but dramas are really hard to market if you don't have a name in them. They are. We had some
Yeah.
great dramas
So are
come
comedies.
across. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had great dramas and comedies come across our desk, and we distributed some of them, and we tried just as hard on those films, if not harder, than some of the other films. And it was impossible to get anyone to really bite or care, because when you're distributing a horror film or an action film, you can get away with it. It helps if there's a star in it, but you can get away with it a little bit because the genre is the star. People will watch horror, people will watch action, and that's just the way it is. But dramas, it's a little bit more difficult to get anyone to even just click on the thumbnail to watch it.
Yeah.
If they don't see Meryl Streep's face on the cover, it's hard. And that's not, for anyone listening to this, I don't want to discourage your writing or directing or creating a drama. I would just encourage you to think beyond, getting the film in the can and getting it edited, and think too, like, do you have an avenue for this to be seen? Do you have an avenue to take this out and have someone, like, care about it? And I mean, I just think that's responsible filmmaking, because whether you're
Agree.
putting your own money into it or you are asking investors to put their money into it, I really believe that, part of our job as filmmakers, as directors, as producers, is to protect your investors' money, their investment.
Yeah. From a legal perspective, I believe that to be true, although that's not legal advice and I'm not a lawyer. But so a couple things on that front. First, one exercise that I actually really like that came out of, I think, Amazon in its early days as a company, is to write the press release at the beginning of the product development stage. So if you're writing a script and you are figuring out exactly how to structure it, maybe you should consider drafting a press release, because it'll help you identify who is actually going to watch the film in the end and how you're going to get it out there. I'm not saying that has to be a thing, but it is an exercise that I found very valuable and I still do for my own endeavors. But the other thing on that is your distribution plan, whatever sort of film it is, drama, anything, should not be, I'll get into Sundance and I'll get a great distribution deal. I know everybody says that, and that's because it's true. Only about 2% of films get into Sundance, but the thing beyond that most people don't talk about is, even if you are one of that 2% of submitted films, only about 5 to 10% of those get distribution out of Sundance. And a lot of times those would have gotten distribution anyway. It's important to think about how you're going to find not only a distributor, but the right distributor as a filmmaker from the earliest of stages.
I couldn't agree more. And I that's shifted completely. When I made Goodland, it was like, what can I make for the least amount of money, and make it interesting and make it something that I would want to watch. And then I just went out and did it, and I was just like, man, I sure hope someone wants to see this. And that's not a business plan. You're not going to impress any investors, or anyone working on your film with the hope and a prayer business plan. Like, just like you said, like the let's get into Sundance. I call it the obligatory sacrificial $100, you know, to the Sundance gods, offering to the Sundance gods, because it's like they'll take your money and like go for it. Because I mean, like, I'm not telling anyone not to submit to Sundance, because there's always a chance, but
Yeah.
that can't be your business model. It just can't. Um, it just leaves you wide open for, I mean, disappointment more than anything else, really.
The other thing about these festivals, the top tier festivals, is that it is a bit of a insider's game.
Yeah.
And you need to have an insider sales game in order to make it work, because most of those 2% that get into Sundance come from people who were able to call the head of programming, or at least a full programmer. And there are some that make it that aren't that way, but most of them are. And it's important. Just because I'm saying that doesn't mean I like it.
Hmm.
It just is an acknowledgement of the fact that it's true. And I do want to keep that in mind to anybody who might be listening. So
Yeah, I would say that everything we're saying here doesn't mean that Ben and I endorse these practices. It's just it's the harsh realities of what the industry is like right now. I wish everyone had a fair shake at these major film festivals, because I've seen films that, I mean, we all know of films that are better than what they're actually programming, but some of the things that they're programming had this person directing it or that person producing it. And I'm not big on the whole, like, there are gatekeepers in this industry, but I don't have a chip on my shoulder about it. It's just like you should be aware of it so that you can set into place actions so you can help navigate that system. If there are gatekeepers, there are things that you can do to help set yourself up for success, and that may be making a couple films, each one getting progressively better with a bigger budget until you're ready to approach, and making contacts all along the way by doing that until you've made your third or fourth film. And that's the one that finally, like, you have enough contacts, and then you're the one who's reaching out to a programmer you met at a film festival for another film, and you're the one who's like has eyes on the film that you made because of your hard work for the 5 to 10 years before that. I'm not saying this to be discouraging. I'm just saying, like, this is how it works, and like you should know it, and you should play into the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much about knowing the rules of the game so much as knowing what field you're playing on and what
Yeah,
objects are immovable, because rules can change,
and
but
they do all the time in this.
all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a yeah, and actually, for more on that, anybody listening, you should check out the Manny Serrano episode here, because we actually have a whole like 20-minute block around festival and how to use festivals on there.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest thing you learned out of being involved at the highest levels of a distribution company that you did not know as a filmmaker?
I think what I probably didn't know as much was just how hard, if okay, let me rephrase this. If you get a distributor that you trust and you're working with, and sometimes that can be hard to come by. I know a lot of people are on these distributor Facebook groups, and there are predatory distributors out there, but for the most part, these people are doing their best. They're trying. If your film succeeds, their company succeeds. So they are trying their best. They are doing what they know what to do in a changing landscape that has been said is changing all the time. It's just like we're seeing it happen right now. Like, all the prices of the subscription-based services are going up right now, and they're consolidating, and they're taking less films, and they're moving things in-house, and they're changing the way they're doing things, and they're shifting around, all of these things. These strikes will have a lasting impact on the industry for years to come, what they're taking, what they're not taking, what they're looking for. And so, like, this is constantly evolving. So when your distributor is working with you, and you you maybe don't think you're getting, hopefully they didn't overpromise, but like maybe you don't think you're getting what you deserve or what your film deserves. Just know that they are behind the scenes pulling every lever that they can to try to get your film to succeed, because they want that too. They do not want your film to fall flat. The better your film does, the better it makes them look. The more laurels they get, the more logos they can add to their web page, the more bragging rights they have, the more social media followers they get if they get a film that hits. They're not trying to just take your film and do nothing with it. They're trying. And I guess to just go back to your question, what did I not know, is like, I guess I never, it's not that I didn't know it, it's that I didn't think about how hard how hard this side of the business is. And it's built on relationships, whether that's getting filmmakers press, whether that's getting platforms and streaming services to actually watch the film, whether that's talking to film festival programmers to try to get the film programmed in certain festivals, coming up with marketing plans to get the film out there, get it seen, thinking outside of the box, because this film maybe doesn't have a star, but it's great. So what can we do to get people to care about it? Like maybe we can have a theatrical, a limited theatrical run in university towns that start at midnight if it's a special type of horror film, just like anything that you can do to think outside of the box. Hopefully your distributors are doing that, or thinking about these things, or having these conversations. But it's hard. It's hard on our side too. It's one of those things where it's just like you make this film and you're just like, okay, now just like the world wants to see this. And the harsh reality is that a lot of the times the world doesn't want to see it. And maybe it's not that they don't want to see it, it's that they don't know it exists.
And
so
vying for their attention is extraordinarily time consuming and often costly.
And that's just like what you said, we're no longer just competing with a slate of films that are coming out to theaters on a certain date anymore. We're competing with every film that's ever been created ever, because it's available somewhere on some streaming service. So if you want to watch something, that's now available, or if and so you're competing against every film ever. And you're also competing against everything that's not a film. You're competing against TikTok now. I mean, how many people, I'm sure everyone listening to this either knows somebody or is somebody who 5 minutes into a film pulls out their phone and is on TikTok while a movie's playing in front of them, on Netflix.
Yeah, my wife does that. The irks me to no end, honestly. But you're totally right. And it's not just about, it's not just about the feature films that you're competing against. It's about everything. I have some younger friends who are more like in their 20s. And I'm continually surprised by how few of them actually watch movies in the way we talk about movies. And that is something that is important to think about, and just how younger people's idea of content is changing dramatically. And I know that we're not supposed to say the word content when referring to movies. I don't care. It's a
Well, films are no longer at the center of the culture, and that's really hard for people like us to hear, who like got into this industry because we revered films, and certain films, like we wanted to be able to be part of that conversation. And that's just not exactly how it works now. I mean, things are always shifting too, right? Like, I know I keep saying that, but they're going to come in and out of favor. Like, we had a great summer with Barbenheimer. like no one,
but
really,
it was basically,
I think,
those
saw
two
that.
movies that took the entire box office.
Yeah.
So
but I guess it does show that a film can still be kind of like the center of culture, though not always, I guess. And I mean, like, this will date this podcast maybe, but just this past weekend, Five Nights at Freddy's
Mm-hmm.
just did amazing numbers, and it was day and date, meaning that it was released on Peacock the same day that it came to theaters,
Mm-hmm.
and it did $70 million in business.
I'm
Like,
not surprised. There are certain movies that are much better experienced as a group, and the theater is still basically the most affordable way we can do that as a society.
yeah.
But it's a lot harder to get people out to the movies than it used to be.
And that was marketed towards, teenagers. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
a PG-13 horror film, that based off of a video game that was very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, it can still happen, I think show our age because I don't want to bemoan the way things used to be, because I
We're
mean,
not
I
quite
think
at grandpa stage yet,
if
despite
you
how I
go
dress.
if you go back and listen to film conversations in the early 90s, they probably sounded a lot like they do right now, when Quentin Tarantino came onto the scene and people were
Mm-hmm.
complaining about the death of, movies of a certain type. And now we pine for what that was. It's just cyclical, is all I'm saying. Things change.
Yeah, no, this will change. And in the late 80s, when a lot of the models for distribution that are still around in some way, shape, or form, they've changed, they've evolved along the way. But at that time, the film industry was significantly larger than the video game industry. And that is no longer even remotely close to true.
Yeah.
And but we're also competing with those other time sinks.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to keep in mind as creators, and I mean, maybe I'm not helping by having a podcast because that's content, but you know what? I like it, so I'm keeping doing it. So,
Hey, I mean, people can't watch movies while they drive, or they shouldn't. I don't advise it.
even the talkiest of talk movies, you should not do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ill-advised.
Also, don't watch YouTube while you're driving, but it's also on the other platforms. So,
Yeah. And you can listen to it.
yes. Got that listenable tag and everything. So what was the biggest surprise out of Goodland? Like, I know you went in with with really reasonable expectations, and frankly, that is what other filmmakers should do as well. But, like, do you remember when I called you from a coffee shop after a meeting that I had to leave the market for because I didn't want to say too close to the market, to tell you that you got offered a theatrical?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably between that and so there's two moments that come to mind. It was that one because we were just laughing because I held back theatrical. And I was like, not because I was being selfish or crazy, but just because I had a very practical reason for doing so. I had a single theater that wanted to play it, and I just didn't want to be told no, essentially. So negotiating that back into the contract was good. And it did give me the leverage to show it in my hometown theater. So not that anyone would have stopped me. Like, everyone was cool about that, but that was probably the biggest because I just did not think. I mean, Ben, you and I had conversations. We were both like, "This isn't a theatrical movie. We know that. Like,
No, it's
don't worry about it."
since working with Michael, my definition of what it is and is not a theatrical movie has shifted.
Sure.
But it's also important to even with those shifted expectations, not everything is a theatrical. And
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. And you still have to be willing to put in the time and effort and have the contacts to make it work. And there are very few people who can do that still. So.
Yeah, because just sidebar, when you're taking a film that no one's ever heard of out to even just 10 cities theatrically, without proper marketing or advertising, there's a good chance that 3 people will show up. And
Yeah.
that's a risk. That's a risk that some of these independent theaters take if they like the film, or certain promises are made on what a marketing budget or advertising budget in a certain city looks like, and that helps, or there's some appeal for a city. There's a built-in fan base in this area. This film was shot here, or it could even be something like the DP's family lives in this city, and they're going to get all their friends that come out and see it, and that's something that, like, I think good distributors will have those conversations with filmmakers. And like, the filmmaker is one of the, in my mind, still to this day, the filmmaker, when you're working with a low budget independent film and you want people to see it, the filmmaker is one of the biggest assets, because they know their audience, and they've built this thing, and they're going to care more than anyone else, and they're going to help you push. So like, having those conversations with the filmmaker and building a plan around the release, or around the filmmaker's like assets, or audience for the release, is really important. But that's a sidebar. Back to your original question, then the second biggest shocking moment was when you called me and told me that both HBO and Showtime had made an offer on the film, and we had to decide between the two.
That was a tricky conversation, if memory calls. I think it was. I think it came down to dollar value, though.
It did come down to dollar value, and I mean, like, it wasn't, and I don't know how much
we can't say how much it was, but they were there. It was not a small difference.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it was not a inconsiderable amount of money difference between the two. And so that was the other one that that wasn't even really on my radar, I don't think, at that time.
No, I had sold something to Stars before then. But I had never sold anything to either HBO or Showtime on this, or been involved in anything that was sold to HBO or Showtime, and was very happy that it ended up on Showtime. It's also just a good movie, by the way. It's on AVOD, isn't it?
Thanks. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime and Tubi right now.
Okay. Yeah, you should watch it on Amazon Prime, because no commercials.
Check it out. Yeah, you got Prime.
But
watch commercial free.
Still really like that movie, by the way. That's like not even.
Thank you.
But going back to what you were saying about working with your assets, working with your distributor to amplify your assets, which is a paraphrase. But the way I say it is one of two ways. One, your distributor is best utilized as a megaphone, not a scribe. Or we can't create your voice, but we can help you amplify it. And we know how to take it to the right places, so you have the best chance at amplifying your voice. It's never a 100% thing. And then the other thing that I say is basically the same thing. I just say it as, we help you take what you've got from 1 to 10, but it's kind of on you to get from 0 to 1. And honestly, that's a harder part, speaking as a business person. But it is where it is.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it time and time again at Mutiny, that the filmmakers who came in with ideas, or with a social media following, or a cast and crew that were excited about the film and willing to promote or play ball, like, all of those things really matter. They really do. They may seem insignificant. I think that's one of the misconceptions that people have with distribution. They think that their job is done once they get a distributor, and let me tell you, it's not. Like, if this process is done properly, even at the highest level, it's like, you don't think about this, but when Christopher Nolan makes his next film, he's on the
late night
tours, late night circuit. He's doing all day media events. He's just sitting down and having the same conversation 100 times, as and
with an
people,
exclusive interview every time, even though it's the same information. Sorry.
No, that's exactly right. And he has his 10 talking points that are cleared to talk about, and that happens even at a low level. And it may, like, when you're working at this lower level, it's sometimes harder to get people to care or to take, to take interest, but that doesn't mean you don't work any less hard. Still have to work just as hard. So to get back to my point is, if anyone's listening to this who's finishing a film or making a film or thinking about making a film, don't just finish the film, no matter how good it is, and hand it off to someone and just expect them to do all your promotional work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Work with them. And don't, I'm not saying like don't be like, don't be
Up in their
bothering
grill.
them. Yeah, don't be up in their grill. Don't like, but like, ask what you can do to help them. Provide them with assets. If you have a good trailer, if they like your trailer, if they like your art, whatever it is, work with them to do it. Promote it, be excited about it. Promote it on your social media. Promote it on social media pages for the film. Like I said, get your cast and crew involved. Get your family involved. Get everybody to go out and see the film, no matter where it is, or to rent it on Amazon the first day that it drops and then leave a verified review. That stuff matters. Like Amazon is almost exclusively like algorithmic driven. So when you do that, you have a better chance to get your film on the homepage of like up top, so people will actually see it. And that goes for all the streaming platforms. Amazon is just an example. Get if you're a Peacock exclusive, get everyone to watch it on day one. Get the IMDb ratings, ask everyone, and don't be afraid to ask people. If you are at a film festival and you get a Q&A afterwards, ask people, like, if you liked my film, please go on IMDb and give it a rating
right now.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
And try to get those at the time, because people forget. It's just a thing. No, you're 100% right on that. The biggest thing I'd add there is, if you are trying to push people to a certain traffic area, it is wise to concentrate to one area, just because you'll have a lot more impact. And if you get in that algorithm, there is some nebulous effect on other ones as well.
And that's what we would always advise filmmakers when we were working at Mutiny to do. Their film may have been on Amazon, Vudu, Dish Network, DirecTV, across the board. It might have been on all these platforms, but we would tell filmmakers, drive everybody to this link, make a bit.ly link so you can track and monitor who's going and how many people are clicking on it, and send everyone to Amazon and ask them to rate it, to rent it and then rate it, because those verified reviews really do matter. And I mean, we saw this happen with several of our films. Some of them, just like, you hit a certain threshold and it goes up, and then people who don't know about this film are watching it. There's a very clear line of demarcation that's just like, this is everyone who knows about this film watching it, and then it hit the algorithm and you can see the spike.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. And it happened with more than one of our films, I believe. A lot of it was around working with the filmmaker to give them the best practices for social media and all of this, and actually getting them to buy in. Because if a filmmaker can't buy into their own film, how can they expect anyone else to some level?
Yeah, and I think a lot of filmmakers do buy in, but oftentimes, and I get this urge, being a filmmaker, I would love nothing more than to just make a film, hand it off to somebody, and then go be creative again. But you have to view this next step, the distribution step, the marketing step, as a part of your job. It's a necessary part of your job. You have to show up to work every day and do it, whether you want to or not. And I'm not talking about like endlessly, self-promoting. If you feel uncomfortable getting on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram bragging about yourself all the time, that's okay. But there's other ways to do it. There's other means of advertising, and get creative. Come up with things that we don't even know or think about. Like,
it's really important to not just go like say, oh, social media ads are the most price effective thing that you can do. It's not always true. Depends on your goal, depends on a lot of things. If you're looking for pure CPI, cost per impression, radio's cheaper. It's if you're targeting like a place where you have a you can just use the iHeart Radio app or a similar app to buy ad space in places like wherever you're showing your film for that
Mhm.
theatrical run, and just do it for a week run there. That can be extraordinarily cost effective in terms of awareness building, but it's not just about one single thing, and it's also why you want to work with a distributor or somebody who knows what is actually an effective use of money at this point,
Mhm.
because it's not always the best thing to do. Like buying ad time on public access TV in Wichita Falls is not going to be very effective if you're only screening in New York and LA,
Yeah.
as an extreme example.
Yeah. And I mean, like, any filmmakers listening to this, like, think about, going back to what I was saying earlier in the conversation, think about all of this stuff before you start making your film. Like, you get the script. From that moment on, everyone that you interact with about your film or on your film, or that helps you with your film, or that, whether it's the catering company, people think movies are cool still.
Mhm.
Like, people love movies. It's still not normal to know someone who's making and distributing films and doing it at a high level. So as you're making the film, keep all these people in mind. Keep a list of everyone. Obviously you will, because you'll have credits, but I think about that every time I see the scrolling credits. Those
Mhm.
scrolling credits last, can be anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of names on everyone's scrolling credits. Utilize all those people. Those people want to see the film. They want to be a part of this. Like, don't, like, make sure that they know about it, whether that's like an email list that you've been, making, compiling since you started your film, or, whether you're just like, you are actually in touch with all those people still. Like, let them know when your film's premiering. Let them know when,
Mhm.
the film is out. Let them know, like, be in constant contact with them, as because they're excited about it. Whether
Mhm.
they, like, made sandwiches one day on the film, or they are like the art director, they want to share that with all their friends and family too. So
Mhm.
what I find is, a lot of people, you get to the end of the process, and maybe it's been in post for 6 months to a year, and then the directors or the producers just aren't even talking to anybody anymore. They've just
Mhm.
like, and then like the cast and crew find out that, you know the film came out weeks after it came out, and they
That's
don't care now, because they don't feel like they were included.
yeah. No, that's accurate. And it's similar to how you should deal with your crowdfunding backers in a way.
Yes.
Um, you should be updating them regularly, and you should be making sure that they know when they're going to get their swag, because that's at
Yeah.
least part of why they did it. And if you have some budget left over, which is a big if,
Good
some
luck.
sort of of physical object that you can give your crew that they'll think of your movie after on the last day of shoot is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But again, if you have the money, because yeah, we're all putting it on the screen most of the time.
Yeah.
But um, I did have a couple things that I wanted to get your opinion on from the perspective of a filmmaker who straddles the line of a distribution executive, however you want to call that. And the first one would be, what did you think when you actually heard a bit about the payment lags?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is something we dealt with,
Hmm.
just as a filmmaker,
Hmm.
is you hear about a deal
Mhm.
and then you wait months, even possibly up to 6 months or longer to then get paid for that deal. And it's very difficult for some people, even when they're explicitly told
Mhm.
this is how long it's going to take. It's hard for them to understand why it's going to take that long. Like, for instance, I told my parents, like when after we made Goodland, that it got a deal and it was this amount of money, and then after that, not all the time, but like they would be like, so have you seen any of that money yet? I'm like, nope, it's still coming. I told you it's gonna be a while. They were just like curious. I think they thought for a while that I was uh, you know, being taken advantage of or
Mhm.
something, just because that's not necessarily
It's my
like,
nice suits. That's
yeah,
why people think that.
it's that lag in time
Mhm.
isn't standard in every business.
It's
And
not standard in most. Yeah.
yeah, in most businesses, but there's a reason for that. Is because who the platforms are getting their money in, and they're calculating streams and rentals and purchases, and then there has to be a cutoff date for that, and then they have to pay out the distributor, and then sometimes the distributors will have, the distributors can't function on, they're working with all the platforms and thousands
Mhm.
of filmmakers and all of these things. They can't just cut a check as soon as that money hits the bank. Like, that's not how it works. They have,
Mhm.
standardized payout structures that they have to adhere to as well for cash flow reasons for their own
Mhm.
business. So you're working on 2 or 3 or 4 different companies, major corporations, cash flow to finally trickle down to you. And I say trickle down, it just in time more than anything else.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's surprising when you first find out, oh man, like this deal sounds great, or it's killing it on AVOD right now. My film is doing great on Tubi, and then you have to wait
Six
three to
months to
six
get six to
months.
nine, sometimes 9 months. It's actually not
Yeah,
that uncommon for it to be 9. But that is a real thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your distributor is hiding something from you, especially
no,
if they're actually picking up your calls. That said, always keep at least a little bit of an eye on your distributor until you have
sure,
uh
yeah. And
trust.
again,
Yeah.
this isn't like a blind statement to trust all distributors. It's like I don't trust all anything. like like definitely do your diligence.
Hmm.
But like I said, if a distributor has earned your trust, and you feel like you can believe them, and or they have paid you in the past, that's something we dealt with, Ben, with
Yeah.
Mutiny, is some deals come through and we can cut that check right away.
Hmm.
And we always tried to do that when we could do that, to keep goodwill with the filmmakers, because we
Hmm.
knew there were things that were coming. And not everyone's going to do that. I'm not saying if your distributor doesn't do that,
Hmm.
that they're bad or wrong. I'm just saying that that is something that we decided to do as a company, because we were just starting, and we wanted goodwill with our filmmakers. We wanted them to know that, you know,
Hmm. I mean,
we were trustworthy.
it's true. There's also a reason we called the company Mutiny.
Yeah.
It was a lot of the members of the company who started understood that there is something of a seedy element in much of the industry. Not all of the industry. I'm not saying everybody is. After all, I'm a producer's rep. And if I thought all producers reps were like that, I don't know what I'd do. But the big thing there is just keeping an eye on and being aware of the arena you're playing in,
Yeah.
basically. And it's noteworthy. Anyway, so the next question I had on you, as a filmmaker straddling both lines, what did you think of art changes in general?
Art changes.
So actually, let's keep that. let's make that more specific to start. What did you think of the art changes on Goodland when you did that film?
Okay, so just to give everyone a little bit of context to what Ben is talking about. You know, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an artist. I have ideas of how things should look. This is an aesthetic medium. It's very visual, obviously. And so filmmakers oftentimes have ideas of how things should look, and sometimes they're absolutely right. You know, like good taste. There's a difference between good taste, and then sometimes you just see art that's just, okay, this person may be good at filmmaking, but they don't understand Photoshop or couldn't afford good art. Like, and that's also fine. Distributors will come in and like help you out there. But I'm talking about when a film would come in and have good art, but we would deem it not marketable. And that's where I fell with Goodland. Like, we had a beautiful poster that looked like something you might see on the Criterion edition, Blu-ray release. Not that we were ever going to get that, but that was kind of the style in which you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I'd say that that's an accurate description.
Yeah, it didn't get across what the film was about at all. Not even a little bit. It just looked nice. And so going into distribution, there were elements in the film. This is a crime thriller with some heist elements to it. And they obviously wanted to bring all of that to the forefront. And I understood the instinct to do so. And I don't, when I first saw the art, it wasn't like my vision for the film or what I thought. And then the more I looked at it and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, like, this is going to give it the best chance to succeed. And there was also parts in my film in particular, there's all these layers of things that you're kind of like discovering as you're watching the film, up to the point where you realize, spoiler alert, that there is a heist element going on, and then the bank robbers have really cool masks. But that's supposed to be kind of a surprise in the film. Well, when you put the bank robbers with a really cool mask on the DVD cover, you're not really hiding anything, So there was a part of me that was like, well, artistically, I don't like this, but I understand that a film of this size needs all the help it can get. And the masks are cool. Like, I get it.
The masks are quite cool. You did didn't you just grab those randomly somewhere at a gas station?
No, we had those customly made. So if you're to Google the film, I'm sure the image will pop up, but they are coyote skull bank robber masks. So it looks like a canine skull. And then the robbers wear black hoods over it, and it kind of has this very like almost Halloween horror film look to it, though that's not what they are. I just just going into the creative decision behind that, I thought every great bank robbing film has iconic masks, whether it's the presidents in Point Break or the nuns in The Town,
isn't there one with Santas too?
Reindeer Games.
That I forgot that was a in there. I still am annoyed that film came out in June. I haven't gotten past that.
Iconic though. I mean, like,
it is.
Remember
You're right.
it.
Yeah, it's
not that Goodland is iconic by any stretch of the imagination, but that's just the creative intent. So just going back to art, I understand the impulse or the want for a distributor to put that up front to sell the film, and ultimately it worked. It absolutely worked. I learned my lesson right then and there. So when I got into distribution, I had a better time talking to filmmakers about doing the same thing to their art. I also wanted to include them. I had to explain to them, okay, your art looks great, but we can't use it for, X, Y, and Z reasons. We want to come up with something more commercial. We'd like you to sign off on it. Like, we would like you to agree to this, because we don't want to hold anyone's film hostage or do anything or misrepresent a film, because that's something you dealt with, Ben, with misrepresentation of art and film. We don't want to market it as something that it's not. We just want to highlight the most marketable aspects of what it actually is.
Completely. And this kind of falls under the same heading as we want to amplify your voice, not create something from it. Basically, it's a okay, last question from the filmmaker's perspective. I know how you feel about this, but for those who don't, how do you feel about distributors retitling a film?
Again, with the filmmaker's consent and conversations being had, I feel like it's okay. Especially if a film comes in with either like, sometimes a filmmaker will come up with a ludicrous or grabby title that really does get your attention, but maybe you can't use, or maybe it's not great, or maybe their title is just really bad, or again, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with what their film is actually about. So I'm not the biggest fan of retitling a film, though I mean, we've had several instances where we had conversations with filmmakers and they understood and ultimately agreed.
I can only think of one retitle we did. I think the others were done by the filmmakers.
I think you're right. I can think of two. I won't.
Okay.
No names. We can do it off mic.
Yeah, we'll say there, but I think we both know what they are. But yeah, I mean, I think that a distributor shouldn't change your title unless they have really good reason to. Like, and one way to protect yourself against this happening in a bad way is to start with a better title. Like, most of the time, distributors won't change it unless we have to. It's a lot of work. It doesn't make sense, but like, pretty sure this story got told, at least in the majority of it, in a different episode. But I represented this film called The Restaurant when I got it, and even when I told them, I said the distributor's going to change this name because it doesn't index well. If you're going to do you want to change the name now so that doesn't happen? And the director didn't want to, the producer did. He yielded. Eventually ended up being called The Devil's Restaurant, which is weird because it's a vampire movie. But yeah, and there's a lot of marketing stories on that. So that's episode 5, folks. But it's a good example of how that happens, and it's also a decent example of how you can prevent some of these things from your distributor. Like, the biggest thing on The Restaurant, if they had changed it to The Demon's Restaurant or The Vampire's Restaurant, that wouldn't work. But something along those lines solves this issue entirely. But it also dovetails into the fact that a lot of the crew wouldn't help promote because they felt it was being mismarketed, and they didn't realize that most of that was on the other ends, not anything to do with the filmmaker. So that's that. Well,
again, open communication with your cast and crew would help that. Also, yeah, I mean, just another example of like thinking ahead to distribution while you're in the early stages of your film. And I'm not trying to harm anyone's artistic integrity. I'm not saying everything needs to be a superhero film. That's not what I'm saying at all. Write the film that you want to write, but be thinking about like what is the poster? What is the title? What are the trailer moments? Like, be thinking about those things, because that's really going to help you, craft, I think, your film, ultimately your entire film, but then also, like your marketing campaign on the backside.
Entirely. Last question before we move to the final 3.
Okay.
Can you give an idea of how you cut a good trailer?
Okay. So I don't know if this was touched on a whole lot, but that is what I did a lot of my time at Mutiny, was cut trailers. I know we kind of touched on it, but like, And that's something that really always surprised me, is that we would get a lot of trailers in, or even I would see other independent filmmaker trailers, and sometimes they're just like scenes from the movie, or they're like not really cut together, or the music doesn't blend. And my first question that I would always say to Ben or the rest of the team, I would just say like, have these people ever seen a trailer before? And I don't mean that like, I'm not putting anyone on blast or anything, but like, that's my number one bit of advice for if you're actually in charge of cutting your own trailer, or you're hiring someone to cut a trailer. Watch a lot of trailers. It's just like what filmmakers do to make films. We watch a lot of films. We read a lot of scripts, ideally, if you're a writer. Like, it's no different with the marketing materials. Like, watch a lot of trailers. Like, you will start to see patterns. You will start to see when people, where the music cues change, where the needle drops come in, where the sound goes completely silent, where you're going to have a massive hit, where you need to have a ramp up, when title cards come in. Pick 5 of your favorite trailers and watch them on repeat. And then really, like, once you get past like the excitement of seeing that trailer and being reminded of the film, like, study it, like really, really, like, look to see what the editor is doing. Okay, there's a person talking here, and they're showing, clips from part of the movie that may have nothing to do with what he's saying, but they're just like getting more of the film in there for marketing purposes, or to make it look cooler. And then, oh, I've seen this film, and I know that those two conversations don't actually happen with each other, but they cut it together because it's representative of what's happening in an entire film. Because a Hollywood theatrical trailer is 2.5 minutes. A lot of time on the indie side, we cut 90 to 2-minute trailers. And so you have, or 90 seconds, excuse me. So you have 90 seconds, 90 to 120 seconds.
There's not a lot of time to waste.
Yeah,
really.
to get across your film. And so, do it, and do it in an exciting way, and use cool title cards, and use awesome sound effects, and pay attention to this sound design. Like, that's another thing. Like, on your 10th time going through the same trailer, like, watch it with your eyes closed. Or don't watch it, but listen to it with your eyes closed, and like, listen for, again, the music cues and the dialogue and the sound design in the background. And once you start to really do that, you'll start to understand how trailers operate. And then it's kind of like, you see the Matrix. Now when I see a trailer, I can't it's hard for me to just watch a trailer now. I'm watching the art form, because it's its own art form. Whether it's not maybe the highest form of art, but cutting trailers is its own thing. You may be an incredible feature editor, but not be able to cut a trailer, and vice versa.
Yeah,
but they're different skill sets.
It's an entirely different skill set. And if you happen to be in film school while you are watching this or listening to this, and are in post-production, you should consider some sort of specialization, and trailers are an underutilized one that actually allow you to be in the industry itself as opposed to the corporate side. So yeah, we could easily have you back on to talk about a lot more of that, but we are already over. So
whatever you want.
You're always welcome back, man. So the 3 questions I ask all my guests. The first, what are your top 3 favorite movies as it stands right this second now? Can change in 10 seconds. Just what are you vibing on?
What am I vibing on? Right. Okay. So, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Talk about, just being able to, like, you could turn the sound off on that film and really just study the camera movements. I know that's cliche to say, probably, any filmmaker knows that, but like, honestly, that movie just moves in a way that, like, that movies don't really move anymore. I mean, movies move faster now. They cut faster, but that film, like you can just of
It
any
covers a
film,
lot of ground.
it
I
does.
rewatched it like last week. It was
Yeah.
a lot more, and actually that was in part because Patrick Ray's #1 pick was also Raiders. So
Oh, nice. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's a filmmaker's film
Hmm.
too, because it's like it's so beautiful. Of all the films that I can think of, if you lay out the timeline and threw a dart at it, like
Hmm.
you could probably make a poster of that frame. Like every frame in that movie is
Yeah.
pretty incredible. Um, I really love Good Will Hunting. That's a
Okay.
different side of the filmmaking, that's less visually in the filmmaking side of things. I love the
Hmm.
story behind the film almost as much as I love the film, just that they wrote it and just like believed in the film and wouldn't let
Hmm.
anyone else star in it but themselves. That's the idealist in me.
That's true
And
for
then
Rocky as well, isn't it?
it is, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Stallone wouldn't let anyone else
Hmm.
uh act in it but him. It was he wrote it for himself and he stuck to his guns, and here we are.
That doesn't always work. It
No, it
works a lot.
doesn't.
It works. It fails a lot more frequently than it works. Just for clarity, since it's
There's
a
a
steady
reason
Eddie
we
podcast.
brought up two examples of it, and
Uh,
those are probably the two everyone knows.
yeah, probably. Um, #3.
um and number three, this one's my fun pick. I like to throw this one out just to curveball everybody, because it's like not the best movie ever made or maybe even a great movie, but I just love Men in Black. And I said that, I
It's a
think I said,
good movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're like if you're at all interested in just like the way a modern screenplay moves, um that film is really good. Ed Solomon, who wrote it, is I think a great writer. He's recently teamed up with Soderbergh and doing a lot of work with him, but and read about the backstory of that film, because it was
Mhm.
a hell of a ride to get it made and off the ground, and the script changed a million times. And I know that's like kind of a very pop culture film from the
Mhm.
past, but it's one of those movies that when you watch now, it also came at that time in the 90s where practical effects
Mhm.
and CGI were, I think, at like the pinnacle of like
Their
overlap.
intersection where
Yeah,
it made just as much sense to do either one. It's a good pick.
yeah,
It's a good movie.
yeah.
Um,
And I mean, along the same lines with the visual effects, you can look at Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, Men in Black. That was that time period where, I mean, The Matrix, they were kind of getting it right before we just went to everything
mhm.
is shot, on green screens now. So yeah, that's my left field fun pick.
Those are good picks. I don't do this super often, but I feel like it today, so I will. Mine would be Stardust,
Nice.
uh, The Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks Animation,
I,
and I'm gonna go with Demolition Man again. I did Demolition Man on another
nice.
one, but it's still solid.
It
It's
is. It's a solid action flick for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if I had to do one that wasn't used before, I'd say Broken Arrow. But the that is that.
Loving
Second,
those 90s action flick
good.
picks.
They are my soft spot.
Yeah.
If I could make like if I were to just EP movies and make just crappy ripoffs of them for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. It's
Yeah.
just um the so if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that advice be, and when would you give it to yourself? You don't have to change any actions from your previous life or end up differently, but one piece of advice. You can if you want, but one piece of advice.
I think on the filmmaking side, it would be that like no one owes you anything. So like don't operate with a chip on your shoulder. I think
Hmm.
that kind of came off pretty quick I think by the time I had gotten Goodland in the can, I was starting to realize that. But I think a lot of early young filmmakers, myself included, we operate on ego, and you have to have a certain level of ego to even just be in this industry, because you're using, or you're taking up someone's time, 90 minutes to 2 hours. You're asking for a lot of time from someone to say, like, I got something to say, you should hear it. So there's a little bit of that, but I think a lot of young filmmakers, myself included, when we get into this, it's just like, I made a thing, why aren't I famous? Why am I not directing Michael Bay level features? He's no good, I'm better than him. Michael Bay's an incredible technical director, by the way, and I will fight anyone
No,
who
he
argues.
is. He needs better writers.
He needs,
That's the only
yes.
thing. Yeah.
I am, story not his thing. Am I a big fan of all his films? No, but from a technical standpoint, he's forgotten more than I'll probably ever know.
Mhm.
But having said that, I think a lot of filmmakers have that attitude, and we
Mhm.
even run into it on the distribution side, because young isn't necessarily an age. Young is
Mhm.
experience. I think I think
Mindset more than experience.
yeah. So the advice I would say is just like chill
Mhm.
out. Like, no one owes you anything. Like, just keep working, keep honing your craft, keep getting better, and eventually, when you're making the level of stuff that deserves attention, you'll get attention.
Yeah. It's I meant to bring this up earlier, but I forgot. Oh well, the myth of if you make a great film, it'll find its audience
Yeah,
is a myth.
yeah,
And no matter who told you, they were wrong. It's what it is.
yeah. And
It's
that's all we
Mhm.
can do. We can all we can just work on making a better film the next time out. And when you make a good one, if it doesn't get the attention you think it deserves, just go back out there and try it again.
Yeah. I've had I have stopped paying attention to too close of attention to my podcast stats because I have no idea what's going to pop off anymore. It's just a
Yeah. It's that
but
William Goldman quote, right?
yeah, basically nobody
No,
knows anything.
yeah.
The uh and the final question, the hardest of all of them, all three, all day, all of them. Uh where can people find you? And what are you looking for from anybody who might be watching or listening to this podcast?
So I'm not super active on social media. I do check, I guess, Twitter or Instagram. You can find me. Doke on Twitter, I believe the same, or maybe JW Doke on Instagram. If you want to connect, feel free to send me a message. I don't get very many, so I will probably respond. You can also find me on IMDb Pro. My email's listed there too, so feel free to reach out if anyone has anything to say. And what am I plugging? Is that what I'm
Yeah,
supposed to be saying?
basically.
So I have a film out right now that I co-wrote with Ben and Jacob Burghart, the directors, called Headcount. Look for the Headcount 2023 version. There was one made, I believe, in 2018, but the 2023 version I wrote, it's out on streaming platforms right now. So if you want to check out some of my work, that's a good place to do it. And then, as you said earlier, Goodland is on Amazon Prime and Tubi.
Cool. I'll put either Amazon, or if I can find an AVOD link for YouTube, I'll do that because they prefer native links. But other than that, yeah, thanks for coming out, and also shout out to Shout Factory on that too,
Yes,
because
yes.
they're the
Shout
distributor. Yes.
Shout Factory distributed headcount.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool. So again, thank you, Josh. You're welcome anytime,
Thanks
and
for having me, Ben. It was good.
thank you for listening. This has been the Movie Moolah podcast. I remain your host, Ben Yenny. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with a friend. It really does help at this stage. If you're on YouTube, hit that bell. If you're anywhere else, hit auto download, because that also helps with that algorithmic spread we were talking about earlier. And check out my free independent film business resource pack for 2 free ebooks, these 2, and a whole lot more. Thanks very much.